Hey everybody, welcome to Hear Us Out. I am Patrick.
And I'm Paul. How's it going?
Pretty good. I think my voice reverse broke just at the end of me saying Patrick there. Good
Oh,
to see you all. I'm 14 again. It's really, really cool. I have a loud noise in my
hey
ears that
everybody, welcome to Hear
I'm
Us Out.
going to
I am
try and
Patrick.
pause.
And I'm Paul.
It's
How's it
really
going?
distracting.
Pretty
So,
good. I
Paul,
think
I'm
my
going to keep
voice
talking
reverse
while
broke just at
I'm
the
going to
end of me
fix some
saying
things while
Patrick
you
there.
introduce what we're talking about
Good to
tonight.
see you all. I'm 14 again. Which is, tonight we're going to be talking about the animation,
I have
which is industry
a
and
loud noise in my
movies
ears.
and stuff that which
I'm
is
going to
are
try and
considered
pause.
or animated movies and may not be considered animated movies. So as Patrick said, we watched the Spider-Man or Spider-Verse movie. It was fantastic. We both enjoyed it. This isn't a kind of review of that,
Nope.
but it did get us talking about kind of the animation levels of kind of people in film. Because the idea was that we were like, oh, Spider-Verse is just amazing. It's incredible. It's really fun, really good. But people we had conversations with were just like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's really good for an animated movie, and it's just like that's a sticking point for us because it's good for a movie that happens to be animated. So it got us into the conversation about kind of animation
Yeah.
and how it's perceived within the audience and also the industry.
So it sounds like I may have buggered the audio for the outward feed as well. So, Brian, thank you for saying audio is fixed now. That was all on me. I had a bit of a mishap on my side. It's always good to start the show with a technical issue. It means there won't be another one. But like Paul just said, is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, or even its predecessor, which was also brilliant, Into the Spider-Verse, it's an animated movie. No one's going to argue about that. But you know what else has done really well this year, Paul? A little film, a little movie, a little doodad called Avatar.
Yeah,
And I am going to go ahead and say that I would consider it kind of animated. Because, okay, there are human characters in it. I get that. But technically, no spoilers. But you've got that in other animated movies where there's maybe one human. I just realized I got very close to a spoiler by accident there. Yeah, I know. Now you got to go watch Spider Verse to see it. But Avatar, the background doesn't exist. The
yeah,
characters they don't exist. The Navi, I hate to break this to you, it's not all practical effects. Those aren't all big blue suits, and even the water they were swimming around in isn't water. So
you
yeah,
you should definitely look that up of what they used because it is really cool.
I've pulled up actually a kind of a sweet screenshot of. I've got Sigourney Weaver, who's a great example in Avatar of what animation can be. Because Paul, we're going to end up talking about it. We may as well jump straight to it. Mocap, motion capture,
Yep.
is all a big part of this. So people will say, okay, so Avatar isn't an animated movie because the actual performances by the people are done in motion capture. So they are there acting, and really, it's in the case of Avatar, it's just avatars that they're controlling, quite literally. Um, and to that, I say, okay, I hear what you're saying. The performance is captured, but how big a difference and how big a gap is there to then somebody animating a character in an animated movie where also everything that you see on screen is generated, let's say. So one of them, it's all computer generated. The other, it's all, and I'm going to say pencil. We all know it's not. It's digital art is still computer generated these days. So what's the big gulf or chasm there for people when they say, "Oh, I don't like animated movies, but I love Avatar"?
Yeah, and it's not even there's also other levels to it as well because there's also Thanos. Thanos is a mocap animated character. My thoughts. So like there's plenty of this kind of like levels of it and everything. So, but it is interesting that Avatar, although it is an animated movie because it can't be done without animators. So this is my kind of take on it. Which is it is I think because it has the actors there. I think it's because it has like Sigourney Weaver and which goes others kind of actually being there capturing their which goes acting um that makes people have a little bit of a different things. It conjures up like into the Spider Verse conjures up a row of an entire floor of an office building filled with people with computers and stuff like that getting it all done. Whereas in stuff like Avatar, it's like they go to sets, they go to they go to places and stuff like that, and they have mocap suits, and they act out the scene, and then the animators will essentially kind of will just animate over them. But this is the interesting thing, because it's a bit of a sticking point, because Andy Serkis, one of the greatest mocap people in the world, and also really started up a large kind of mocap house and stuff like that after the Lord of the Rings. He did come out and say that mocap animators are just digital makeup artists, which was like the biggest thing. Like, it's the worst possible thing that you could say, because that was referring to Gollum. And the animators came out and went, there was times when Andy Serkis wasn't even there. So he played really good scenes and stuff like that, but a lot, like, you know, animators don't need, like, the mocap stuff, they don't need you to be there all of the time.
Yeah.
So this is where the verge. I believe the mocap originally needed a lot of help. It needed a lot of actors' help and stuff. But we've gotten to the stage in which they can do some. They will perform very important scenes, because you really want to get that emotion from that actor and get what they see from the character that they're kind of portraying. But animators don't need you anymore for 100% of the time. So, like, this is where we're saying that the gap is shortening, in the sense of, like, it's even getting worse with AI kind of stuff, of being able to kind of, you know, add people to video that, you know, just from other videos kind of stuff. But that's where my gap is. The gap is that mocap is becoming less and less different from kind of animation in kind of what would be the traditional sense.
And don't get me wrong, I want to be clear about this. I respect the actor's performance when it comes to mocap, but I equally don't accept the disrespect. And I'll tell you what, I'll try and pull up an image of, oh, there's the Iron Giant, not yet, sorry, Spider-Man. So Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. If someone says, oh, well, you see, that's just animation, whereas, you know, Planet of the Apes, that's, you know, it's a different performance because there was motion capture. At which point I say, I'm not going to disrespect Andy Serkis's performance in Planet of the Apes. So why would you disrespect anybody who did the acting, the voice acting? Because that's the other thing. People forget it's still a performance if it's only a voice. Just so it so happens to be in tandem with what every performance is, with the writer and everybody else who creates what's being said and the emotion in the situation. The animator or the artists that are involved in bringing Miles Morales or anybody else, Gwen, you know, Spider-Gwen, to the screen. So I'm very pushy on both sides of it, going, yeah, respect all performances equally here. Because the idea that, oh, well, it's just animation and they're just voice actors. I don't think Andy Serkis or, you know, Josh Brolin or anybody in the Avatar movies would go, well, you know, you're just body doubles for stand-ins for what we're going to digitally animate later. So I think there's we're hitting that weird crossover, as you mentioned. The gap is closing. But I think it's time for everybody to kind of accept that animation isn't necessarily the right word to use to try and be all-encompassing. It's about performances and all of the people that come together to make them happen. It's about the movies and all the people that come together to make them happen. So whether you're an animator that worked on Spider-Man or on Avatar, you're still an exceptionally talented artist. Whether you're a voice and body person, so if you were the voice and the mocap person in Avatar, or you were just the voice in, let's say, you know, Haley Steinfeld in Spider-Man for Spider-Gwen, they're both performances. They shouldn't be thought of as anything less than each other. And that's where it's starting to irk me. It's not that people go, oh, you see, it's animated because of cartoon, because most people have grown out of that. You know, I think 27 or 35 or however many years of The Simpsons has broken the idea that a cartoon is just a cartoon. Lest, you know, don't even bother mentioning South Park and all the rest. So yeah, I think that's where it's starting to stick in my throat now, where people are measuring films and categorizing them with a certain pejorative nature to go, well, it's only animation. Well, it's all bloody animation here, folks. Is it a good movie or not?
Yeah, like that's the key point because like um I can argue small things, but the key moment is the fact is that we need to break away from this whole like in my opinion we need to break away from the that animation has a weird stank on it
Mm.
in the sense that it's just like yeah it's animated it's not kind of like real and it's just like you know but
But the
you
Navi are,
cried
you know.
yeah, kind of. It's just like yeah, but you cried in Toy Story and like across the Spider Verse and like we're in into the Spider Verse and all that kind of stuff. Like but you haven't cried at like Forrest Gump. So why are you emotionally connecting further with animation than you aren't with that's another thing is that I also feel that people get in depth more with animation and it's just like uh but they still have that stank on it where they just go, yeah, it's an
Yeah.
animated film though, like it's for mostly for kids. Um, but yeah, no, I agree that the symbiote kind of relationship between actors in all their forms and animators is important because as we discussed, with mocap you need them to be there to do the big kind of scenes and stuff. My only thing is that with which is an interesting point that I found out. In first year of animation college, a class of animators are told repeatedly that you have to know how to act to be an animator, which is a really kind of nice kind of thing. So you need to be an actor to be an animator because if you think about it, they are doing what an actor is doing, just it's a third person acting kind of thing, which I've always been intrigued about. Like,
Yeah.
not to in any way belittle actors and their amazing talents or anything like that.
It's
To do
all
first person.
all skills. They're just different parts of the big wheel.
Yeah, but it's always been an interesting thing to me that in first year animators are told that they need to be able to act to be animators, which is just a fantastic thought.
Which,
Um,
like, I think there's enough evidence to support that and I've got some of the Into and Across the Spider Verse scenes up on screen. So that's Spider-Man, and people are like, oh well, Spider-Man. Of course, it's a comic book. Of course, it's a cartoon. Now it's an animated movie. Well, yeah, it is, but it's also Tom Holland and the whole MCU thing. And yes, I'm not going to say that the majority of those movies are animated, but there's enough CGI in there that at what point are we going to say the majority? Are 51% of all frames 51% CGI? We could be at that for all I know. It could be more than half CGI from just filling in cities. They don't shoot everything on location always in these movies. Backgrounds. Watch The Mandalorian. You know, anything you see might be on a big virtual stage with projection. I think that's thanks to the modern technology and the acceleration of AI and other things, Unreal Engines, and the various things that are happening by the week and by the day, it would appear right now. Visual arts and even non human created visuals are going to be a feature. So it does play to that idea of why would you say animated with any sort of not even just the stank, but any sort of distinction of well, it's a completely different discipline. Because yes, it is, but is it not just like everything else a different format? Because if you're a director of a movie, are you going to say, oh well, you're only directing an animated movie? Let's see how that worked out for anybody doing a Pixar movie in the last bunch of years. Like it's the writers, everybody thinks writing a story is just writing. And that can then be turned into anything. Well, you have to write for the medium that you're going to be shown in. You know what your limitations are. You know what's going to be possible when you're doing, if you're reviewing scripts and screenwriting things, you know that the medium does matter. And not just the medium, but the specifics of that medium. So, I'm not going to run down makeup artists either. But makeup artists and all of the people who deal with visuals in any way, they're just part of whatever the specific genre of that medium is. So why this divide, especially when it's so difficult to see where that difference is now? And Paul, I'm gonna go for Iron Giant. I hope you don't mind. It's one of Paul's favorite movies, and I think it's a great example of what people think of when they think animation before digital, because they'll always go back to the Disney, the Snow White, Seven Dwarfs kind of stuff, or even the bigger movies, all the way up to things like the Iron Giant. Full of actors, full of directors, full of all the usual disciplines.
Yeah, like Iron Giant's one of those kind of interesting ones because it starts blending 3D kind of animation with 2D animation. Because that's the other thing is so yeah, and a lot of movies started that. There are traditional movies in the sense that do just 2D animation. There are still hand drawn animations. Sword of the Stranger, which is an anime. It came out about 10 years ago, an entirely hand drawn animation, which is
old school.
Incredible.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And it looks incredible as well. You can definitely tell the kind of the slight differences. A lot more expensive to do now than kind of digital 2D and digital 3D. But yeah, it's an interesting being able to blend the two. That's a foreground and a back. Like in the bottom one, that's a foreground, which goes and then a kind of background, and then a kind of 3D animated character on it.
Yeah,
that's essentially, in my opinion, what they're doing now with a lot of live action films. That's where we're kind of blending the kind of lines things. It's just the difference is the CGI or the 3D animated Iron Giant is now being replaced by the 3D animated Thanos.
Yes.
Kind of thing. So,
and that's
where we're blending the lines.
And that's the thing. I don't want to live in a world where painters are throwing shit at sculptors or vice versa. Art is art. Artists are artists. Craftspeople are craftspeople. But storytelling, and that's what all of these things turn out to be, are storytelling. So we can go into the minutiae and how we all define it, and whether or not something will whether or not you'd upset an actor by saying this, or an artist, like a digital artist, or a traditional, pencil and charcoal using animator. I would easily be able to insult them all just through lack of knowledge or accidents. But I think that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about that general large perception of what is a movie. Oh, look, everything's in the animated charts, best for an animated movie. And I think Toy Story changed the game in a lot of ways. And I've got a lot of time for Toy Story. I loved the first Toy Story when I saw it, and I thought this is going to change the game forever. In a lot of ways it did. But did it make me never want to see Watership Down or Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs? Or did it make me kind of go, now everything must be this? No, it was one more brilliant way of storytelling. And the quality of the technology increased the quality of the visual representation, because I wouldn't say it increased the quality of the art between, let's say, Toy Story 1 and Toy Story 4. I don't think the artists became better, but I think their pencils became sharper. Yeah. So, was there any less art in Toy Story 1 than there was in Toy Story 4? No. But look at the two images on screen. The difference in technology and rendering imagery, massively different.
Yeah. The technology has become a kind of leaps and bounds in which it allows it to look closer to realism. Avatar is a really good example of that. Prior to that, Final Fantasy Spirit Within, that was the first full-on CGI movie that I saw. I don't think it was mocapped, but it was so lifelike that when kind of Avatar came out, it also blew my mind, and the kind of like the look and feel of that level of kind of mocap animation kind of thing. But yeah, it's interesting because for me the line for animation was like used to be that animation was able to do things that live action was never capable of doing.
Right.
Animation was always the kind of like you accepted, like you do in most movies, you accept the fact that this world is just being portrayed to you as a 2D kind of world. But they're able to do a lot more crazier, kind of fantastical kind of stuff. So that was always, in my mind, where the line was between animation and live action. Because in live action, you accept the world, but the thing is that when you then have a really badly CGI'd dragon, for example, it takes you out of it, because like you're just like they're the actors are, you can tell in certain ways that the actors are finding slightly struggling, especially back in when kind of the CGI kind of animation was becoming more prominent in films.
Is this the longest, slowest dig at Jeremy Irons' performance in the year 2000 Dungeons and Dragons movie ever?
I do like that you picked up that, but it's also the fact is that like the kind of animation stuff that we used to do in live action was like the tennis ball, famous tennis ball bouncing around the place, very difficult. Star Wars had a huge big difficulty with fighting the tennis ball or looking at the tennis ball kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where now we're able to do a lot more fantastical things in live action because of the technology that is being gifted to live action from animation. You know, mocapping is everybody, a large amount of people say that mocapping is the cheat for animation, and I'm just like, no, it's the bridge between the two mediums.
Yeah.
You know, kind of thing. Mocapping animation is the bridge between the two mediums. You are using actors to animate your characters, whereas animation was solely traditionally not. It was just which was animatics and what is it? Screenshots. What is it? Screenshots? Storyboards. Kind of thing. So I always see mocap has now become that kind of like, you know, nice divide between the two. Not divide, nice bridge between the two, which is like, you know, bringing everybody together. Because now in live action we can do so fantastical things, and it's believable, you know, kind of thing. It's, you know, you're hardly able to even see some of the CGI in some of them, you know, that you're just like, you know, it's. But that's what I like. I like about it.
And I couldn't agree more. And the funny thing is, like, there have been things, and I'm just going to throw up a Scanner Darkly for a moment, or some screenshots from it. You've got a performance there that is then like rotoscoped and animated on top of, and it was all for an aesthetic and for a feeling. And for my money, it worked very well. For a lot of other people's money, it didn't. It worked for me. But nobody at any point spent any time, I hope, trying to decide whether or not that was an animated movie or not. But I hate to say it, the reason they didn't is because they're like, oh yeah, no, I know that's Keanu Reeves and I know that's Woody Harrelson. Rather than the sensible thing of, well, yeah, no, animators and you know, digital artists were involved to give you what you saw on screen. So it was a combination of those two people. And much like mocap, that's like mocap without the need of the dots and suits. It's just another version of what you just talked about, that bridging the gap and bringing the two things that ends up in the final story, the final performance, the final visual. And when I say visual, I can't help but go back to the thing that pisses me off most, which is where voice actors don't get credit for being actual actors from a lot of people. So yeah, I don't know, Paul. I'm just checking time. I think we might have a very quick ad break because I want to come back with the big 1-2 punch that's going to lay everybody on their ass. And that is where we have an argument about one movie in particular, whether or not it is or isn't an animated movie. And while we're on ad break, anybody in the comments there, if you can get in, let us know, do you have a definition of animated movie? And then we'll see if this one movie breaks that completely, because it just might, folks. It just might.
It might indeed.
All right,
in a bit.
We'll be right back. But Hear Us Out isn't the only choice. You should check out our friends over at It Takes Two podcast. It's a podcast where two people take two films with the same plot or premise, watch and discuss them. Films like Gremlins and Critters, or The Truman Show on EdTV. Lisa and Nick don't stop there though. They get creative and compare some unexpected movies. Some that you don't see the connection until you realise that they can be described in the same way. They launch new episodes every second Tuesday, or Monday if you're in New Zealand. Find them on your favourite podcast service, or check the link in our description down below. That's It Takes Two Podcast. Tell him Hear Us Out sent you. And we are back. The pre-break teaser of we've got a movie that we're all going to fall out over. And I actually think we should all fall out over this. So I'm going to go ahead, rip off the Band-Aid, show the image and say, all right, Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Is it an animated movie? Is it a movie? Or is it an animated movie? Is it a movie? Do you just say it's just a movie? Or do you say it's an animated movie? Most people will be cowards and say it's a movie with animation in it.
I'm going to say, first of all, I'm going to be not diplomatic. I'm going to say that it's a movie. I'm going to say all of them are movies.
Exactly.
If it's a live action movie or a animated movie, it's very difficult. It does blur the lines, but I would say that it's more animated than it is live action, and it's because of Toon World's parts, and that it is directly. Because the difference, like. I would also say that there's a couple of other movies that also would contend to this now, but I do think that it's a subgenre to it rather than a main genre to it.
Oh, for sure.
Kind of thing. But I do believe that it's a majority animated movie.
There you go. A majority animated movie. But yet, because you have the same opinion as me, as it turns out, they're all just movies. I went to see Across the Spider-Verse and thought it was absolutely fabulous. And I didn't come out and go, that was a great animated movie. I come out saying, that's a fantastic movie. Because in my mind, it's just a movie. Because we've gotten to a point where they're all just movies. Back in the day, when Who Framed Roger Rabbit came out, it was magic of new form for me. It was like the blending of two worlds so amazingly. It was one of those times, you know, some people don't want to know how the trick is done. I was like, I can't wait to see the behind the scenes. I can't wait to see the featurettes that they used to put on TV of how movies were made. Like, how did Bob Hoskins do that with, you know, what was holding up the handcuffs? Were they stiff? No, they moved around too much. It was just amazing filmmaking. Now, the fact that so much of it is animated made it just even more amazing filmmaking, because the animators had to then do their part to make all of the other part work. And I think it's the greatest example of what I mean by these are all performances. It was all one big story. And nobody out there is going to lose sleep over saying, well, you can't call it an animated movie because there's humans in it. Okay. Well, what about something, you know, that has nothing but digitally animated characters, but they were voiced by humans and one of them happened to be mocap? Ugh.
No, I have the perfect example. I have the counter to that argument. Completely the counter to, it has humans in it. Cool World.
There we go.
Two humans in it. It has Gabriel. It was Andrew Gabriel. He's the Irishman.
Gabriel Byrne.
Gabriel Byrne and Brad Pitt. And all of the rest of it is CGI or animated characters. It's all animated characters except for those two characters. So I can see that Brew and the thing said I would say non-animated as it features humans. Cool World features humans, but the backgrounds, the other characters they interact with are all animated. So that is more than 50%. That's like 98% animated and two humans in it. So that's always my account. I've heard that story before where they're just like, yeah, but humans are in it. Like, you know, actual live actors are in it, and it's just like, yeah. So Cool World.
And as anybody who's been watching the stream closely enough can see that my butterfingers have been clicking on all the wrong things. So you get a small flash of Space Jam also, which now will not come up. Oh, dear God. I'm having a nightmare over here, Paul. Space Jam. So at various points, you do have humans in it. But the majority of the movie, Michael Jordan and Bill Murray, because Bill Murray had to, go and hang out in a fully animated environment, just like Cool World. So is that an animated movie? So now I ask the question again, and Brian, you were kind enough to answer it first time around. Cool World, Space Jam, are they animated movies? I'm
Like
assuming
that's
you're going to say it's yeah. I'm just seeing, and you're on a delay behind us, but I just saw your it's a blend before I even asked that. So, but it also does also feature on. Oh, I don't know. Yeah, nice one. This is why it's interesting to me because I think the word animation is no longer relevant the way it's used, but it's even more relevant to all modern movie making because there are more and more animators involved in every type of movie being made. So like it's any animator that's about to turn off the stream just because I said animation, it's not a word that's relevant anymore. Take it the way I mean it. It's because it's ubiquitously relevant that I don't think you need to say it. Movies shot in full motion, real life movies as people would call them. So much digital effects, and so many effects that require animators and other artists to be involved.
yeah. Like it's interesting that what goes that people perceive Space Jam and Cool World and Who Framed Roger Rabbit as a blend. But then when you go, well, what about? I'm trying to think of a film that would speak to certain people. God, any horror movie, pretty much with a ghost in it.
Yeah, good
Which
point.
is
Silent Hill,
um,
a classic. With
Silent Hill, which is The Haunting, which is you have characters in that, which are animated. They're not. They're not acted by a person. They're animated, kind of like ghosts and creatures and stuff like that. So where does the line? Are they blended? They're 95%, 98% live action, and 2% animated. So are they a blend now? Because we've made obviously with Space Jam and Who Framed Roger Rabbit and Cool World, we've made the distinction that they're a blend on the 98% animated and 2% live action. So
exactly.
is there no longer live action and animated as a single? Like I think anime, yeah. When, ooh, that is an interesting one.
Yeah,
How
you just hit
many?
the wall there now. Where actually,
Well, no. See, this is the thing because um, in live action, to me, in live action, there's very little no longer blends. But in like animated films, there's still that classic kind of thing that isn't got the mocap there.
yeah,
So there is. So that's an interesting thought of kind of like, well, I know there's definitely going to be films that are just live action still.
well, yes, there are. You know, if you and me go out and make a movie tomorrow, we have zero budget. We might have some special effects, but they're going to be whatever comes free with the Adobe suite and whatever else we
Explosions
can.
rather than yeah.
Exactly, we'll have some fire and stuff like that, but we're not going to have a third 3D character running around because it'll take too long and cost us money or look terrible if we don't spend money. But yeah, the thing for me is that animate the idea that there will always be animated movies that don't have mocap, etc., etc. Unless you remove actors from it altogether and you're animating something that's completely silent and all of the acting is done by the animator, then it's still in a lot of ways it's just traditional movie making that happens to use animation as its conduit because there's a writer, there's a performance, there's a director. No performance is down to one single. I already covered this earlier. To one single part. It's always a culmination of everything that went into that, including good directors. Sometimes that's why some great actors have been in terrible movies and given wonderful performances because they've been able to raise their game and help the movie out. But the reverse is also true. There have been brilliant actors who've just turned in bad performances and sometimes were given bad direction or had reasons for it from a bad script. Or, in the case of animated films, there have been voice actors who've been let down by the artists that were helping portray the visuals. And then there are people whose performances were, they get so much credit for being amazing, yet, it wouldn't have happened without the animator that was the other half of the performance. Like you say, that first year being told you have to be an actor also. You have to be able to act to be an animator.
So, just so I clarify, just so I understand, um, if we were to say, and I don't like using these words because it starts off a rally,
Oh,
the purest form of either animated or live action, do you think that you can say, so just for clarification, because there's essentially voice actors in animation, that it's not the purest form of animation?
oh
So you
no,
would say that if
I
it's,
wouldn't say purest form. I'm saying that it's all still movie making. If it's a short movie, it's a short movie. If it's a movie, it's a movie. I wouldn't say that it's not an animated movie because there's a voice actor. It's that animated
yeah,
movies aren't separate.
yeah, that's what I wanted to say, because like if we, as you said, if we were to go out and make a film, more likely it'll be 100% live action. There'll be no animation or CGI or anything like that. It would just be like, us trying to get out of a thing. But in so I was trying to
But
clarify that the
yeah, and
animation
actually to
side.
clarify, I can make it very simple because I think I know what I said that tripped you off on that is if there was no voice actors, then some things I would call just an animation. So if somebody does a voiceless animation, they may have still just made they made a story, a short story, let's say a short animation that has no words, no writing, and it's all told by the artist, who maybe at the same time, if it's a one person show, they'll have been the director, the conceiver of the concept, and they're conveying their story through just visuals and sound. Then I would say I would very quickly go, well, that's as close as I would say animation with a big hard A, where it's like that's just animation, as in, and not just as in the negative, but then as in that's animation. Yes,
It's
all of the other things are animation too, but if you want to try and say, well, here's something that doesn't have anything else involved, it's like, yeah, that was the animator's brilliance and the animator's brilliance alone. Everything else in movie making. It's why I'm happy to go and see The Flash, and I have the Ezra Miller problem is an Ezra Miller problem, but I can go and see The Flash because it took 1,000 people to make that movie, and I'm seeing their movie, like those
yeah,
1,000 people, not just Ezra Miller's movie.
yeah. No, yeah, I wanted to get clarification just on that. Yeah, so that's, yeah, it's a good, yeah, it's an interesting kind of point that it's always going to need kind of, in some way, actors and animation and animators now, like digital artists, animators, actors. Like we're having this whole blend that yeah, the very fringes are unique.
Yes,
We've got
exactly.
independent movies that are now essentially the most kind of unique versions of each one. They're the furthest of the spectrum,
Yeah.
kind of thing. And then as we get closer to the middle, like mocap is probably the closest to the middle. I would say Scanner Darkly is probably the, it's like
It,
so close to slap bang in the middle kind of
it's
thing.
yeah, it's where Dawn meets Horizon. It really is. It is that point. It's the event Horizon of it all.
Yeah, kind of thing, because it's like it's literally that they acted the entire movie out, and then animators and digital artists came and kind of animated a really nice style over them and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Whereas mocap, they have that whole setup and stuff, so it feels like it's slap bam in the middle.
So
Yeah,
Paul,
no, that's the
like
it,
there's no right or wrong answer to this, and I think maybe just that horrible thing that we are for the internet because they all love negativity out there. It's
yeah,
all positive because animators are amazing, filmmakers are amazing, people who shoot completely live action and never have a drop of CGI. Your movie's great, your thing is great if it is great. If you make it with love, care, and attention, and it is good, I don't care if it was done with cutouts of piece of paper that were moved around on a whiteboard, or if it was shot in the on location in the Sahara and it was the most complicated, difficult thing to shoot and absolutely zero effects, no lighting. There was one microphone and you used the sun for everything. Great. Was it a good story? Was it well told? And did it bring something new to the artistic landscape or the landscape of entertainment and enjoyment? So anybody that goes to see Spider Verse, Across the Spider Verse, if they come out and they say pretty good for an animated movie, expect to be hit with popcorn from me.
I was gonna say that's where the negativity is.
Yeah.
Fuck those people. Like
Fuck
fuck those people
those
who
people.
that are that are using animated. Oh, it's great for an animated movie. Are using it as a negative, because you're belittling the work of everybody involved,
Yep.
and not accepting that it is a movie. So I think the negativity is coming in the form of fuck you if you just go, yeah, that's cute for an animated movie. It's just like, no, you don't like, you don't get it. It's just a different, lovely format of a movie.
And my God, is it lovely! So it was a perfect impetus for this topic. I'd love to hear from animators, anybody involved in filmmaking, anybody with an interest in film, anybody with a thought in their head or an opinion on this. Let us know in the comments down below. On your way, if you like what you see here, hit like. If you don't, completely understand. If you really like it, maybe hit subscribe and you get some more of this goodness in your life. But also, think of others. Don't forget to share. Share with your friends. Create as many conversations as you can around this, because it really is the negative part of, there are people that I do want to just kick in the shins and go, don't you ever say for an animated movie again when you just came out of Avatar 6 months ago and didn't realize that 99.9% of what you saw was not real. Even the people that you saw on screen, most of them were digitally touched up also. And just final thing, at no point was anybody having a dig at makeup artists or hair and makeup or any of that stuff, because they're all amazing parts of the process too.
Yeah, they're all great. Like,
so
everybody's great. All
so
skilled.
Paul, let's hope we get some angry people, because that'll be great for us. But also let's hear from the lovely people that we know, and we've had plenty of great support from them over the years. Shall we walk our way out of this one and see if we can go and put pen to paper and write a film that we can then animate?
We'll write 2 scripts. They're exactly the same, but one of them is just in the medium of animation, and one of them is just in the medium of pure live action and pure animation. That'll be an interesting. Same movie though.
Well, I will take the live action because I can't draw worth a shit. So I'm going to give you. Well, yeah, you might have some friends who can help too.
But yeah, no, thank you very much for watching. Let us know down in the comments what you think of animated, CGI, mocap, everything there kind of thing. Like, subscribe, ring that notification bell. I do believe that we've done some animation stuff before, which is on some of our favorite animations from nostalgia and stuff like that. So check it out in the library. Getting you back into the library. Go back into the library.
Yeah.
You know, we've got a great thing there. Otherwise, I've been Paul.
And I've been Patrick.
And we've been Hear Us Out.
We'll see you next time, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Take care.